the loneliest job in the galaxy, Doctor. Sarah Mitchell floated through the narrow corridors of Research Station Omega-7, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor with each careful step. The station hung in the void between star systems, a tiny speck of human engineering surrounded by billions of kilometers of empty space. For 6 months, she had been the only living soul aboard the research platform, studying the strange cosmic radiation patterns that emerged from this forgotten corner of the galaxy. At 32 years old, Sarah had volunteered for the isolation mission when other scientists had refused. The posting offered unlimited research freedom and access to phenomena that could revolutionize human understanding of space-time physics. The loneliness was simply the price she paid for advancing human knowledge. Her daily routine consisted of checking sensor arrays, analyzing data streams, and maintaining the station's life support systems. The work kept her mind busy, but the silence of space pressed against the hull like a living thing. The morning of her 180th day aboard Omega-7 began like any other. Sarah reviewed overnight sensor readings while drinking recycled coffee that tasted like metal and regret. The cosmic radiation levels had been unusually active, creating beautiful aurora displays across the station's viewing windows. She was preparing to run detailed spectral analysis when the station's emergency alarms began screaming. When the stars turned angry, the main display screen filled with terrifying data as Sarah rushed to the control center. A massive solar flare from the nearby red giant star was racing toward the station at incredible speed. The radiation burst was unlike anything in the scientific databases, carrying energy levels that could fry every electronic system within a light year. Sarah's transport ship, docked to the station's lower bay, would bear the brunt of the stellar fury. Sarah's training kicked in as she initiated emergency protocols. The station's shields could protect the main habitat modules, but the transport ship was too exposed. She sealed the connecting airlocks and activated every defensive system available, but deep down she knew it would not be enough. The flare struck with the force of a cosmic tsunami, turning the transport ship into a brief star that burned for exactly 17 seconds before going dark forever. The station shuddered as electromagnetic pulses cascaded through its systems. Half the sensor arrays went offline. The main computer suffered multiple cascade failures, and worst of all, the long-range communication array was completely destroyed. Sarah was now truly alone, stranded on a damaged research station with no way to call for help. Her supplies would last perhaps 8 months if she rationed carefully, but rescue missions to this remote region typically took over a year to organize. The unexpected visitor. 3 days after the disaster, while Sarah worked to repair critical systems, the station's proximity alarms detected something impossible. An object was approaching from the direction of the nearest asteroid field, moving under its own power. Sarah's remaining sensors struggled to identify the craft, revealing a design unlike anything in human databases. The vessel was clearly artificial but followed organic curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. The alien ship was dying. Sarah could see massive hull breaches and failing power signatures as it limped toward her station. Whatever had happened to the vessel, its crew was in desperate need of help. Sarah found herself facing an unprecedented situation. First contact with an alien species had always been the domain of specially trained diplomats and xenobiologists, not isolated engineers. But as she watched the crippled ship struggle toward her station, Sarah realized that protocols and procedures meant nothing in the face of someone who needed help. She activated the station's emergency docking procedures and opened a communication channel on multiple frequencies. The response came in the form of mathematical sequences that gradually evolved into basic pictographs. The alien intelligence was trying to communicate using universal concepts, and Sarah found herself conducting humanity's first real conversation with another species using nothing more than geometry and physics equations drawn on her computer screen. The Kelthera, the alien who eventually boarded her station, stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted color like oil on water. Its face was surprisingly expressive, with large dark eyes that seemed to hold both great intelligence and profound sadness. When it spoke, the words bypassed Sarah's ears entirely, appearing directly in her mind with crystal clarity. "I am Zephyr, of the Kelthera Collective. The being communicated telepathically. My vessel suffered catastrophic damage during a research expedition to study stellar phenomena. I detected your station's emergency broadcasts and hoped you might offer sanctuary. While my ship's self-repair systems restore basic functionality, Sarah led Zephyr to the station's medical bay, her hands shaking with excitement and terror. The being was clearly injured, with what appeared to be severe burns across 30% of its body. The wounds were unlike anything human medical training had prepared her for, but Sarah's engineering background helped her understand the basic principles of alien physiology. Zephyr's body operated on bioelectric principles similar to Earth's electric eels, but far more complex and sophisticated. Your people, Zephyr observed as Sarah worked to adapt human medical equipment for alien physiology. They show great curiosity about the universe. We have observed your species for some time, watching your expansion into space with interest. You are young, but possess remarkable determination. The healing touch over the following weeks, Sarah threw herself into the challenge of treating Zephyr's injuries. The Kelthera's biology was based on crystalline matrices that conducted energy throughout the body, far more efficient than human nervous systems, but also more fragile when damaged. Sarah had to invent entirely new medical procedures, combining human engineering principles with what little she could learn about Kelthera physiology. The work was dangerous and exhausting. Sarah often worked 18-hour days, jury-rigging medical equipment and testing experimental treatments on tissue samples Zephyr provided. Several times, her inexperience nearly caused more harm than healing, but Zephyr remained patient and encouraging throughout the process. The alien's trust in her abilities pushed Sarah to achieve things she had never thought possible. During the long hours of treatment, Sarah and Zephyr talked about everything imaginable. Zephyr shared stories of the Kelthera Collective, a peaceful alliance of species dedicated to scientific advancement and mutual cooperation. Sarah told Zephyr about humanity's dreams of exploring the stars and meeting other intelligent life. They compared notes on physics, mathematics, and philosophy, discovering that intelligence and curiosity were truly universal traits. Your species fascinates me, Zephyr confided during one of their conversations. Most young civilizations we encounter are focused on conquest and expansion. Humans seem driven by questions and wonder. That is a rare and precious quality in this galaxy. The gift of knowledge. As Zephyr's injuries healed, the Kelthera began sharing knowledge that revolutionized Sarah's understanding of physics. Zephyr showed her how to manipulate quantum fields to create more efficient energy sources, how to bend space-time for faster-than-light communication, and how to detect gravitational anomalies that could predict stellar events months in advance. The information was worth decades of human research, freely given as payment for Sarah's medical care. Knowledge belongs to all sentient beings, Zephyr explained, when Sarah protested that she had done nothing to deserve such gifts. We share what we know because learning is the highest form of existence. Your kindness to a dying stranger proves that humans understand this fundamental truth. Sarah recorded everything Zephyr taught her, knowing that this information could advance human civilization by centuries. But more importantly, she found herself genuinely caring about the aliens' welfare. Zephyr was no longer a fascinating research subject, but a friend who had brought light to her lonely existence among the stars. The departure. After 6 weeks aboard the station, Zephyr's ship had repaired itself sufficiently for interstellar travel. The Kelthera prepared to leave, but before departing, Zephyr shared one final gift. The alien pressed a small crystalline device into Sarah's hands, its surface warm to the touch and glowing with internal light. This is a memory crystal, Zephyr explained. It contains everything I have learned about your species and our time together. I will present it to the Collective Council upon my return. Your actions here will not be forgotten, Sarah Mitchell. The Kelthera remember kindness, and we honor those who show compassion to strangers in need. Zephyr's ship departed as quietly as it had arrived, disappearing into the cosmic void with barely a whisper on Sarah's sensors. The station felt emptier than ever, but Sarah no longer felt alone. She had made contact with an entire civilization of beings who valued knowledge and kindness above conquest and power. The universe suddenly seemed less hostile and more full of possibilities. The long wait Sarah spent the remaining months of her isolation cataloging everything Zephyr had taught her and preparing comprehensive reports for Earth's scientific community. The knowledge she had gained would revolutionize human technology and philosophy. But perhaps more importantly, she had learned that humanity was not alone in valuing compassion and cooperation. When the rescue ship finally arrived 8 months later, Sarah greeted the crew with a smile that hadn't left her face since Zephyr's departure. She had gone to the station as a lonely researcher studying cosmic radiation. She was returning to Earth as humanity's first xenobiologist, and the woman who had proved that kindness was a universal language. The rescue team was amazed by Sarah's discoveries and the advanced technology she had documented. Earth's scientific community would spend decades studying Zephyr's teachings, but Sarah always insisted that the most important lesson was the simplest one. Sometimes helping a stranger in need could change everything. As Earth grew larger in the rescue ship's viewports, Sarah touched the memory crystal Zephyr had given her. Somewhere among the stars, the Kelthera Collective was learning about humanity through her actions. She could only hope that her species would prove worthy of the friendship she had begun to build on a lonely research station in the depths of space. 38 years later, Admiral Rebecca Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's most advanced warship, watching through the viewport as another human colony burned in the distance. New Geneva had been a thriving world. With 2 million inhabitants just 3 days ago, now it was nothing but ash and radioactive debris, another victim of the Vorthan Empire's relentless advance across human space. At 55, Admiral Cross had spent her entire career preparing for threats that might emerge from the galaxy's darker corners. She had studied every known aggressive species, planned defensive strategies for dozens of scenarios, and built Earth's fleet into a formidable force. But nothing had prepared humanity for the systematic brutality of the Vorthans. They were not conquerors seeking resources or territory. They were exterminators who viewed the very existence of other species as an insult to their superiority. The Vorthan Empire had appeared seemingly from nowhere 6 months ago, emerging from the galaxy's unexplored regions with a fleet that dwarfed anything in known space. Their ships were monstrous constructions of dark metal and twisted geometry, powered by technologies that human scientists could barely comprehend. But their purpose was depressingly simple: the complete eradication of what they called inferior biological contamination from the galaxy. The enemy revealed Captain James Wong, Cross's tactical officer and closest friend, approached with the latest intelligence reports. His expression was grim as he handed over a datapad containing analysis of Vorthan military capabilities. The numbers painted a picture of overwhelming technological superiority that made Admiral Cross's stomach clench with fear. "They've taken 14 more systems in the past week," Wong reported quietly. "No survivors, no negotiations, no demands for surrender. They simply arrive, sterilize everything, and move on to the next target. Our deep space monitoring stations estimate their fleet strength at over 8,000 capital ships, with support vessels numbering in the tens of thousands." Cross studied the tactical displays showing Vorthan fleet movements across human space. The aliens were methodically working their way toward Earth, destroying every human settlement they encountered. Their pattern was as predictable as it was terrifying. Arrive in overwhelming force, eliminate all resistance within hours, then spend days systematically destroying every trace of human presence before moving to the next system. "What about their technology?" Cross asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Wong activated a holographic display showing the remains of the human fleet that had attempted to defend New Geneva. "Our weapons barely scratch their hull plating. Their shields absorb energy weapons like sponges, and their return fire can crack a human dreadnought in half with a single shot. Admiral, we're fighting with stone knives against gods." The call for help in the depths of space, Earth's most powerful communication arrays broadcasted desperate messages to every known alien civilization. The transmissions carried detailed information about the Vorthan threat, along with formal requests for military assistance and offers of technological exchange. Humanity was abandoning centuries of cautious first contact protocols in favor of raw desperation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, now 70 years old and Earth's leading expert on xenobiology, personally recorded many of the messages. Her hair had gone completely white, and her face bore the lines of decades spent studying alien cultures. But her voice remained strong and clear as she addressed civilizations humanity had only recently discovered. To the Alterian Republic, the Crystalline Confederacy, and all peaceful species who might receive this transmission, Sarah spoke directly into the recording devices. Humanity faces extinction at the hands of the Vorthon Empire. We do not ask for your intervention lightly. We know the risks you would face, but we also know that the Vorthons will not stop with humanity. They view all non-Vorthon life as a disease to be cured. Today they come for us. Tomorrow they will come for you. The responses that trickled back over the following weeks were uniformly disappointing. The Alterian Republic expressed sympathy, but could not risk their own people in a hopeless cause. The Crystalline Confederacy offered to accept human refugees, but lacked the military capability to oppose the Vorthons directly. One by one, every major galactic power found reasons to avoid involvement in what they saw as humanity's doomed struggle for survival. Earth's final preparations, as Vorthon fleets carved their way deeper into human space, Earth itself prepared for siege. The Sol system's defensive installations were reinforced with every weapon and shield generator humanity could build. Mining stations throughout the asteroid belt were converted into automated weapons platforms. Even civilian spacecraft were fitted with military hardware and pressed into service as part of humanity's last stand. Sarah Mitchell worked tirelessly with Earth's military planners, using her decades of xenobiological research to identify potential weaknesses in Vorthon physiology and technology. The aliens were silicon-based life forms with distributed nervous systems, making them incredibly difficult to kill, but potentially vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. It was thin hope, but humanity grasped at every possible advantage. We've identified 17 different electromagnetic pulse combinations that might disrupt their neural networks, Sarah explained to Admiral Cross during a strategy meeting in Earth's deepest military bunkers. The problem is delivery. Our weapons would need to penetrate their shields and armor before the pulses could take effect. Cross nodded grimly. It's better than anything else we've developed. Order all ships to retrofit their weapons with the EM pulse generators. Even if we can only disable a few of their vessels, it might buy us time for civilian evacuations. The Vorthon philosophy intercepted Vorthon communications, translated by Earth's most advanced computer systems, revealed the terrifying logic behind their campaign of extermination. The Vorthons had existed for millions of years, achieving technological and biological perfection through ruthless genetic manipulation and mechanical augmentation. In their view, the galaxy belonged to the superior life form, by right of evolutionary achievement. Biological impurity spreads like a virus through the cosmos, one Vorthon commander broadcast during the destruction of the Kepler colonies. Each inferior species that achieves interstellar travel contaminates the galactic environment with their primitive thoughts and crude technologies. We are the galaxy's immune system, designed to cleanse the cosmos of such disease. The Vorthons had apparently encountered thousands of species during their expansion across the galaxy, and their response was always the same: complete extermination, followed by sterilization of all worlds to prevent any chance of contamination. They saw themselves as guardians of galactic purity, protecting the cosmos from the chaos of uncontrolled biological diversity. Hope in the darkness. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity refused to surrender. Across Earth and the remaining colonies, people worked together with a unity that had eluded the species for centuries. Religious leaders of every faith joined scientists in laboratories. Corporate executives turned their factories over to military production without thought of profit. Children as young as 12 volunteered to operate communication arrays and monitoring stations, freeing adults for combat duty. Admiral Cross found herself amazed by the human response to impending extinction. Instead of panic and despair, the crisis had revealed reserves of courage and determination that even she had not known existed. Humanity might die in the coming battle, but they would die fighting with everything they possessed. "If this is our end," Cross told her fleet commanders during their final strategy meeting, "then we'll make it a ending that echoes through galactic history. Every Vorthon ship we destroy, every minute we buy for the evacuation fleets, every act of courage in the face of impossible odds, will prove that humanity deserved to exist among the stars." Captain Wong activated the tactical displays showing Vorthon fleet positions throughout human space. The aliens were only 3 weeks away from Earth, their massive armada sweeping aside the last human defensive lines with contemptuous ease. 8,000 Vorthon capital ships against humanity's remaining fleet of 200 vessels. The mathematics of survival were brutally simple. Humanity needed a miracle. The final message, as Vorthon forces entered the outer edges of the Sol system, Sarah Mitchell made one last transmission to the stars. This message was different from the desperate pleas for military assistance. Instead, she spoke directly to the one species she knew valued kindness and cooperation above all else. To Zephyr of the Kelthera Collective, if you still remember a human doctor who once helped a stranded traveler, Sarah's voice carried across interstellar distances on the most powerful transmitters humanity possessed. We kept the knowledge you shared with us. We used it to build better lives for our people, not to conquer others. We tried to be worthy of your friendship. Now we face extinction. Not because we sought war, but because we chose to exist. If the Kelthera remember kindness, please remember us. The transmission disappeared into the cosmic void. One last desperate hope cast into an ocean of stars. Sarah knew the message might never reach its destination, and even if it did, the Kelthera might lack the military strength to make any difference. But she had to try. The memory crystal Zephyr had given her so many years ago still glowed softly on her desk, a reminder that somewhere in the galaxy, at least one species understood that compassion was worth preserving. As the first Vorthon scouts appeared on Earth's long-range sensors, humanity prepared for its final battle. Admiral Cross took her position on the bridge of the Defiance, Captain. Wong readied the fleet's desperate tactics, and Sarah Mitchell watched the stars one last time. Whatever happened in the coming hours would determine whether human voices would ever again echo among the cosmos, or whether the galaxy would be left a little darker by their passing. The dead of stars was about to be called in, though none of them knew it yet. Somewhere in the vast night between worlds, ancient obligations stirred to life, and friendship prepared to answer humanity's darkest hour. When hope arrives, Admiral Rebecca Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching in grim fascination as the Vorthon fleet deployed across the Sol system like a mechanical plague. 8,000 ships of impossible size and sinister beauty arranged themselves in perfect formation, their dark hulls drinking in the light of Earth's sun. The sight should have filled her with despair, but Cross found herself strangely calm. Humanity had faced extinction before and survived. Today would simply be another test of the species' legendary stubbornness. The Vorthon fleet had been systematically destroying outer system installations for the past 6 hours, their weapons, reducing centuries of human engineering to glowing debris with casual efficiency. Jupiter's defensive platforms lasted exactly 14 minutes against the alien onslaught. The automated weapon systems around Saturn managed to damage 3 Vorthon escorts before being obliterated in return. Now the aliens were advancing on Earth itself, taking their time to savor humanity's helplessness. Captain James Wong looked up from his tactical display with the expression of a man who had accepted the impossible. "Admiral, they're hailing us. The Vorthon command ship is requesting our surrender for what they call efficient processing procedures." His voice carried no hope, only the professional calm of a career officer facing his final battle. Crossy straightened her uniform and checked her sidearm one last time. "Tell them that humanity doesn't surrender. Tell them that if they want our world, they'll have to take it over our dead bodies. And then give the order for all ships to attack. If we're going to die today, let's make sure they remember the cost." The Vorthon ultimatum. The alien response came in the form of a holographic projection that materialized on the Defiance's main screen. The Vorthon commander was a nightmare fusion of organic tissue and mechanical components, its multiple arms, ending in weapons rather than hands. When it spoke, the words carried the cold certainty of a species that had never known defeat. Biological contamination designation, humanity, the alien commander intoned in a voice like grinding metal. You have achieved minor technological progress, but remain fundamentally inferior. Surrender will result in quick extermination. Resistance will result in prolonged suffering followed by extermination. Choose wisely, primitive creatures. Admiral Cross stepped forward, her jaw set with the determination that had carried humanity to the stars. I am Admiral Rebecca Cross of the United Earth Defense Force. On behalf of my species, I offer you this response. Come and take what you can, but know that every human life you claim will cost you dearly. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us for millions of years. We do not surrender, we do not kneel, and we do not go quietly into extinction. The Vorthon's mechanical features twisted into what might have been amusement. Admirable defiance from an inferior species. We will remember your courage as we sterilize your world. Begin the final cleansing. The battle begins. The first wave of Vorthon ships moved toward Earth like a tide of metal death, their weapons charging with energy that made the space around them shimmer and bend. Cross's fleet of 200 human vessels accelerated to meet them, every ship broadcasting final messages to loved ones and uploading consciousness backups to Earth's quantum storage systems. If humanity died today, at least some record of their thoughts and dreams would survive. The initial engagement was a massacre. Human weapons, even enhanced with Dr. Mitchell's electromagnetic pulse technology, barely scratched the Vorthon's advanced hull plating. Enemy return fire cut through human ships like cosmic paper, reducing mighty dreadnoughts to expanding clouds of plasma and debris. Within the first hour of fighting, humanity had lost 60 ships while destroying only 3 Vorthon escorts. On Earth's surface, Dr. Sarah Mitchell watched the battle through her laboratory's observatory dome, her ancient hands trembling as human ships died in brilliant flashes of light. At 70 years old, she had dedicated her entire life to peaceful contact with alien species, dreaming of the day when humanity would join a galactic community of knowledge and cooperation. Instead, she was witnessing the species' final moments, as they fought against extermination by creatures who saw them as nothing more than biological pollution. The memory of kindness as the battle raged in Earth's orbit, something impossible began to appear on the edge of the Sol system. Space itself seemed to fold and twist as massive ships emerged from what looked like tears in reality itself. The vessels were unlike anything in human databases, following organic curves that seemed to flow like crystallized music. Their hulls glowed with soft bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in harmony with some unheard cosmic rhythm. Captain Wong's voice cracked with disbelief as he reported the impossible readings. Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the outer system. Unknown vessels are appearing via some kind of space-folding technology. Configuration and design match no known species in our databases. The lead ship among the newcomers was truly massive, easily dwarfing even the largest Vorthon dreadnoughts. As it stabilized in normal space, a communication beam reached out across the void to touch every human vessel simultaneously. The voice that spoke was hauntingly familiar to one old woman watching from Earth's surface. This is Elder Commander Zephyr of the Kelthera Collective Defense Fleet. The telepathic message resonated in the minds of every human in the Sol system. We have come to honor an ancient debt of friendship. 38 years ago, a human named Sarah Mitchell saved the life of a dying Kelthera with no thought of reward or recognition. Today we return that kindness with compound interest. The Kelthera arrived. Sarah Mitchell collapsed into her chair as tears streamed down her weathered cheeks. The memory crystal on her desk was blazing with brilliant light, responding to the presence of its creators. Somewhere in the vast fleet now emerging into the Sol system was her old friend Zephyr, the gentle alien she had nursed back to health in the loneliness of deep space. The Kelthara had remembered their promise. They had come to help. The Kelthara fleet was beyond massive. Hundreds of ships materialized from folded space, their graceful forms carrying technologies that made even Vorthon engineering look primitive. But more importantly, they had brought allies. Behind the Kelthera came vessels from dozens of other species, a grand alliance of civilizations united by the simple principle that genocide was unacceptable, regardless of who was being murdered. Admiral Cross felt hope kindle in her chest for the first time in months. All human vessels fall back to defensive positions around Earth. Let our friends show us how this kind of fight should be handled. The Vorthon commander's hologram reappeared on human communication channels, its mechanical features displaying what might have been surprise for the first time in the conversation. Unknown vessels withdraw immediately. This is a sanctioned cleansing operation targeting biological contamination. Interference will result in your designation as contamination, requiring sterilization. Elder Commander Zephyr's response came not as words but as pure emotion, broadcast across all frequencies. Every sentient being in the Sol system felt the ancient Kelthera's righteous fury, tempered by wisdom accumulated over centuries of peaceful existence. When Zephyr finally spoke, the words carried the weight of moral certainty. We are the Kelthera Collective, children of peace and guardians of knowledge. You threaten a species that once showed kindness to a stranger with no expectation of reward. That kindness created bonds stronger than any weapon. Today we honor those bonds with fire and determination. The true battle. What followed was not a battle but an education in the difference between technological superiority and moral purpose. The Kelthera had spent millions of years perfecting technologies of creation and preservation rather than destruction. Their weapons did not simply destroy enemy ships, they converted matter itself into pure energy, while somehow preserving the consciousness patterns of enemy crews for later rehabilitation. The Vorthon fleet found itself facing opponents who fought. With the accumulated wisdom of a dozen peaceful species, Kelthera ships moved through space like living things, their hulls adapting to enemy weapons in real time, while their own armaments rewrote the fundamental laws of physics around their targets. When Vorthon ships tried to retreat, they discovered that space itself had been altered to prevent their escape. But the most devastating weapon the Kelthera brought to the battle was not technological. It was philosophical. They broadcasted the story of Sarah Mitchell and Zephyr across all communication frequencies, telling every species in the galaxy about a young human doctor who had risked her life to save a dying alien. The message spread like wildfire through galactic communication networks, inspiring other species to examine their own consciences. The human spirit. As the battle turned decisively against the Vorthons, Admiral Cross received an unexpected communication from Elder Commander Zephyr. The ancient Kelthera's image appeared on the Defiance's main screen, looking exactly as Sarah remembered from decades past. Time moved differently for the long-lived Kelthera, and Zephyr had spent the intervening years building the alliance that now fought for humanity's survival. Admiral Cross, Zephyr's telepathic voice was warm with genuine affection. Your species has grown remarkably since Sarah Mitchell showed us the true nature of human compassion. We have watched your expansion into space with great interest. You face challenges with determination, treat other species with respect, and never abandon those in need. These are the qualities that convinced our people to risk everything for your survival. Cross found herself struggling with emotions she had kept buried throughout the crisis. Elder Commander, we owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You came when no one else would help us. Zephyr's ancient features displayed something that might have been amusement. Admiral, you misunderstand the nature of our intervention. We are not here because of debt or obligation. We are here because Sarah Mitchell proved that humans understand the most important truth in the universe. Kindness creates connections that transcend species, time, and distance. Today we defend not just humanity but the principle that compassion must be protected, wherever it is found. The new alliance, the Vorthon fleet, reduced to less than half its original strength and faced with overwhelming opposition, finally attempted to retreat from the Sol system. But the Kelthera had prepared for this possibility. Space-folding technology that had brought them to Earth's defense now prevented enemy escape, trapping the Vorthon ships in a region of altered space-time where conventional faster-than-light travel was impossible. Elder Commander Zephyr addressed the Vorthon commander directly, broadcasting on frequencies that reached every ship in both fleets. Vorthan Empire, your campaign of extermination ends here. We offer you one opportunity to reconsider your philosophy, surrender your weapons and accept rehabilitation or face complete destruction. Choose wisely. The Vorthan commander's response was predictably defiant. The Kelthera Collective has revealed its true nature as protectors of biological contamination. You will be added to our cleansing protocols. The galaxy will be purified of your influence as well. Zephyr's sorrow was palpable as the alien made a gesture that caused reality itself to bend around the remaining Vorthan ships. Then you have chosen your path. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on your consciousnesses, for the universe will remember only that you chose extinction over growth. The aftermath. The battle ended not with explosions but with a strange kind of silence as the last Vorthan ships simply ceased to exist. Their matter converted to pure energy and dispersed harmlessly into space. The technology that accomplished this was so far beyond human understanding that Admiral Cross could only watch in amazement as 8,000 enemy vessels were reduced to fading light patterns against the stars. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, transported to the Defiance's bridge at Elder Commander Zephyr's request, found herself face to face with the alien friend she had not seen for nearly 4 decades. Age had touched them both, but the connection between them remained as strong as ever. When Zephyr spoke, his telepathic voice carried the warmth of old friendship mixed with profound respect. Sarah Mitchell, your kindness to a dying stranger has changed the course of galactic history. The alliance we forged in your name now includes 47 different species, all united by the principle you demonstrated, that life is precious regardless of its origin. Humanity has been invited to join this alliance as equals, not because of your military strength but because of your capacity for compassion. Sarah's response was characteristically simple and direct. Zephyr, my friend, I just did what anyone would do when they found someone who needed help. The fact that this led to today's miracle says more about the universe than it does about me. The price of compassion. Elder Commander Zephyr gestured toward the viewport where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the star-filled darkness. Sarah Mitchell, you underestimate the rarity of your actions. In our travels across the galaxy, we have encountered thousands of species. Most would have ignored a dying stranger, especially one of alien origin. Some would have studied us as specimens. A few would have tried to exploit our weakness. Only humans chose to heal without thought of personal gain. The old woman touched the memory crystal that still glowed softly in her palm. I was alone on that research station for months. When you arrived, injured and dying, you weren't an alien specimen to me. You were someone who needed help. That's what humans do. We help. Captain Wong, listening to their conversation, found himself understanding something profound about his own species. Throughout the crisis with the Vorthans, he had watched humans make impossible sacrifices for strangers. Entire colonies had volunteered to serve as rearguard actions to buy time for refugee evacuations. Scientists had shared their life's work freely to develop new weapons. Children had operated communication arrays so adults could fight. Perhaps Sarah Mitchell's compassion wasn't unique among humans. Perhaps it was simply the clearest example of what made humanity special. The Galactic Parliament. Over the following months, as humanity recovered from the Vorthan crisis and integrated into the Kelthera Collective's alliance, the true scope of what Sarah's kindness had accomplished became clear. The alliance she had inadvertently created included some of the galaxy's most advanced and peaceful civilizations. The Alterian Republic, which had refused to help during the crisis, now requested membership in what was being called the Compassion Alliance. The alliance's central principle was revolutionary in galactic politics. Species were judged not by their military strength or technological advancement, but by their willingness to help others in need. Civilizations that practiced genocide or oppression were systematically isolated and contained. Species that showed compassion and cooperation were offered friendship and protection. Admiral Cross found herself appointed as humanity's first representative to the Galactic Parliament, a position that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. As she prepared for her first formal address to the assembled species, she reflected, on how one woman's simple act of kindness had elevated humanity from a primitive species struggling for survival to a founding member of the galaxy's most powerful alliance. Honored representatives, Cross spoke to beings from dozens of different worlds. Humanity comes to this parliament not as conquerors or supplicants, but as friends who understand that our strength comes from helping others. We have learned that the universe is vast and dangerous, but it is also filled with opportunities for connection and cooperation. Today we pledge that humanity will always answer when kindness calls. The legacy lives on. Dr. Sarah Mitchell lived to see her 100th birthday, spending her final decades as Earth's most celebrated xenobiologist and the Alliance's unofficial ambassador of goodwill. She established the Mitchell Institute for Interspecies Relations, a center of learning where young beings from dozens of species came to study the principles of compassionate cooperation. The Institute's motto, carved in crystal above its main entrance, read simply, "Help given freely creates bonds that span the stars." Elder Commander Zephyr, whose species measured lifespans in millennia rather than decades, became Sarah's closest friend and collaborator. Together they wrote the Principles of Compassionate Contact, a document that became the foundation for all diplomatic interactions within the Alliance. The principles were elegantly simple: help those in need, share knowledge freely, protect the innocent, and never abandon hope. When Sarah finally passed away peacefully in her sleep, representatives from 47 different species attended her funeral. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, watched by billions of beings who had benefited from the alliance her simple act of kindness had created. Elder Commander Zephyr delivered the eulogy, his telepathic voice carrying to every corner of known space. The eternal debt. Sarah Mitchell was not the most powerful human, nor the most brilliant scientist, nor the most skilled diplomat. Zephyr spoke to the assembled mourners and the galaxy beyond. She was something far more precious. A being who understood that kindness is the only force in the universe, capable of creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Her legacy is not measured in ships or weapons or conquered worlds, but in the countless acts of compassion that ripple outward from her example. The memory crystal that had once glowed on Sarah's desk was placed in the Alliance's Hall of Heroes, where it continued to shine with soft light that never dimmed. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the simple artifact that had changed the course of galactic history. Children of a dozen species learned the story of the human doctor, who had saved an alien stranger and inadvertently saved the universe from the darkness of indifference. Admiral Cross, now elderly herself, often visited the memorial during quiet moments between diplomatic missions. As she stood before Sarah's crystal, she reflected on the profound truth her friend had discovered: that the greatest weapon against the darkness of space was not technology or firepower, but the simple willingness to help a stranger in need. The ripple effect continues. The Compassion Alliance grew stronger with each passing year. Species that had once been enemies learned to cooperate. Technologies developed for healing and creation replaced weapons designed for destruction. The galaxy became a place where young civilizations could seek help without fear, where knowledge was shared freely, and where no one had to face extinction alone. The Vorthon Empire's former territories were slowly rehabilitated. Their populations taught the principles of cooperation rather than conquest. Some former Vorthons struggled with the concept of compassion, but many embraced their new understanding of universal brotherhood. The galaxy was healing from millennia of warfare and oppression. Captain Wong, promoted to Admiral and Commander of humanity's contribution to the Alliance's peacekeeping forces, often found himself thinking about the chain of events that had brought them to this point. One lonely research station, one dying alien, one human woman who chose compassion over caution. From such small beginnings, the greatest alliance in galactic history had grown. The final truth: as the years passed and the alliance expanded to include over 100 species, historians and philosophers attempted to analyze the sociological factors that had made such cooperation possible. They wrote lengthy papers about political necessity, technological advancement, and evolutionary pressure. But Elder Commander Zephyr, now ancient even by Kelthera standards, always corrected their complex theories with a simple truth. The alliance exists because Sarah Mitchell chose to heal rather than harm, to help rather than exploit, to connect rather than isolate. Every species we have encountered faces this same choice when they meet strangers in need. Those who choose compassion find friends among the stars. Those who choose cruelty find only emptiness and eventual extinction. The debt of stars had been paid in full, but its interest continued to compound across the galaxy. Every act of kindness created new connections, new possibilities, new hope for the future. The universe was vast and often hostile, but it was also filled with the potential for friendship and cooperation. And in the depths of space, on research stations and exploration vessels, and diplomatic missions throughout known space, beings from dozens of different species continued to practice the lessons Sarah Mitchell had taught, that helping a stranger in need was not just morally right, but practically essential for building the kind of galaxy where all sentient life could flourish. The stars remembered kindness, and kindness, it turned out, was the most powerful force in the universe.